One effective way for human beings to reach a state in which they feel they have understood something is to accept it in relation to other things. For example, if someone asks, "Where is the station?" and here's the answer, "The station is where the station ought to be," we would not feel that any understanding has been provided. But if we hear, "The station is next to School A," we would find that much more plausible. Of course, that is only on the assumption that we already know where School A is. And if someone asks where School A is, and the answer is School A is next to the station, that is merely cross-reference and does not give any actual coordinates. Yet when the chain of relations becomes so distant that people can no longer concretely imagine and trace it, they may sometimes still feel that they have understood it. To understand what a strait is, I will first use a definition. To define a concept, one must say what category it belongs to and what distinguishes it from other things. For example, to define a chair, one might say, a chair, the definiendum, is a piece of furniture, the genus made for sitting, the differentia. If we define a strait, it is a narrow and long body of water lying between two land masses, a natural waterway connecting two larger seas or maritime areas. Now let us place alongside it some concepts that are similar to a strait but different from it, and in that way try to understand the strait. First, the canal. Ordinarily, waterways are formed through long-term changes in terrain, erosion and sedimentation. A canal, by contrast, is a waterway dug by human engineering. Therefore, the essence of a canal lies not in natural formation, but in design and construction. What is interesting is that because a canal is made by humans, its width, depth, and even the placement of its bends can be adjusted relatively artificially. A strait is different. A strait is a natural waterway that must be used on the basis of the terrain and water conditions already formed. The Suez Canal is the result of design, but the Strait of Hormuz is the result of natural formation. Next is the Gulf. A gulf is a space formed where the sea extends deep into the land. If a strait is a passage, a gulf is a relatively enclosed interior space. Because three of its sides are surrounded by land, it has a different character from an open body of water directly exposed to the outer sea. Let us suppose that there is a large interior space called the Persian Gulf. If large-scale resources, ports, and industrial facilities are concentrated within it, then the importance of the outlet leading outside becomes even greater. That outlet is the Strait of Hormuz. In other words, the Gulf exists, and therefore the function of the strait becomes even clearer. If the Gulf is a structure that accumulates resources inside, then the strait is the passage through which they are connected to the outside. Peninsula is a useful contrasting concept for explaining how a strait is formed. A peninsula is a form in which land protrudes far out into the sea, and when such peninsulas protrude at length, or when two land structures face one another, the width of the water between them may naturally become narrow. In this sense, the peninsula and the strait stand in contrast to one another. In a peninsula, land stands at the forefront. In a strait, the body of water left between those land structures becomes the centre. The Arabian Peninsula and the Iranian Plateau are two large land structures facing one another and limiting the width of the water between them. That narrow connecting section is precisely what we call a strait, today's main subject. A strait may be defined, in a word, as a narrow natural waterway connecting two large bodies of water. In terms of genus, it is a natural waterway, and its differentia are that it is narrow and long, and that it connects two seas or maritime areas. A strait does not possess its meaning in isolation, so much as have its function determined by what it connects and to what. One may think of it as a situation in which a large body of water, A, and a large body of water, B, are connected, but the land on either side lies so close that only a narrow body of water remains available for passage. That is why, compared to broader waters, a strait has a higher density of vessels and greater constraints on navigation, and it also has higher military and economic sensitivity. From the point of view of the movement of logistics and energy, a strait can be an efficient shortcut. But for the same reason, it is also a vulnerable segment that is easily subject to control and blockade. Couldn't ships simply avoid one another on their own in the open sea, one might think? But if we imagine a situation in which 300,000-ton oil tankers freely navigate while each pursuing only the shortest route, the sea would soon be burdened with high uncertainty and the risk of collision. Even a slight error in predicting which direction another vessel will maneuver to avoid danger can place large ships, whose stopping distance and turning performance are limited, on a collision course within a short time. So human beings created rules, even on the sea. It is a systemic agreement designed to reduce the cost of uncertainty. By partially restricting everyone's freedom of movement, it paradoxically secures more predictable and safer navigation. One of those systems is the TSS. The waters of the Strait of Hormuz may look wide, but in reality the navigational space that commercial vessels can use at will is far more limited. Many congested straits manage the flow of ships through a traffic separation scheme, or TSS. It is a way of establishing something like invisible lanes on the sea. One lane is only for ships coming in, the opposite lane is only for ships going out, and between them there is a separation zone intended to reduce the risk of collision. In the Strait of Hormuz as well, this structure appears relatively clearly. The inbound route and the outbound route each have a width of about 2 nautical miles, with a central separation zone lying between them. In other words, even though it looks like a wide sea, the actual flow of large commercial vessels is aligned and moves within a width of roughly 6 nautical miles. Then who designs and adopts this invisible highway? At the centre of it is the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. But the IMO does not draw the lines on its own. The actual traffic system is internationally adopted through proposals and consultations by the coastal states. In Hormuz, this is where legal tension arises. In the narrow parts of the strait, ships pass through the territorial waters of Iran and Oman. International law contains principles concerning straits used for international navigation, but in actual Hormuz, those principles are not always applied in a simple way. Iran and Oman have each shown their own positions regarding national security and passage. In an ideal case, the TSS functions as a kind of management mechanism. Under the adopted traffic system, the coastal states seek to maintain navigational safety and jurisdictional order, while ships seek to reduce the risk of collision and political friction by following those rules. In other words, the TSS can be seen not so much as a mere lane system, but as a shared operational rule through which different interests secure a minimum level of predictability.